then you start acting like it's already happened, and that's the magic.
1, 2, 3, 4. I was born to Toronto. Easy, quiet, smooth, fast. Easy, quiet, smooth, fast.
Hey team, well, it's been quite a while since I posted a video, and there's a big reason why. So before we get into the muscle you're not training that you need to be training, I want to explain kind of what's going on. I've instead of deciding to write a new book, I've decided to take everything I've learned my whole life through coaching, through training, through education, and put it into developing and building a coaching app. So the grand launch of this flagship app is going to be July 28th. So I'm really huffing it to get all this done. So that's what I've been doing, and I'm excited about it. So it's essentially got sweat dripping down. It's quite warm today here in Jackson Hole. It's essentially going to be one part of 5. So this first part is going to be focusing on marathon and ultra training and giving the user, the runner, a comprehensive approach that takes all the guesswork out of training for a big goal. And some of the categories, kind of what your daily coaching output is going to look like. You're going to have a daily briefing that's going to talk about what you've done up to that point, what's coming, and how that can be reflected into today's workout. You're actually going to have your run workout itself that will focus on training zones that are specific to you. You're going to have a strength training mode that's filled with exercises that you can do right before your run. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. After that, you're going to have a run form component that adds in run form specific strength training and the ability to reflect and upload actually your run form videos for analysis. And then finally, there's going to be a peak mental performance mode. And this is really what I'm excited about. And I say that because it's going to pull everything together. And I think what I'm really passionate about is taking everything we do from a physical training standpoint and put it into training the brain. And so there's going to be, if there's a proper way to strength train and a proper way to train for 100 miles, I believe there's a proper way to think. And that's going to be part of this program of how you can overcome your obstacles, your negative thought, maybe some of the self-sabotaging thoughts that you have, that we all have, that might be limiting you to take on a big goal or to accomplish that. And that's what I want to dive into today. Of the muscle you're not training is your brain. Ultimately, our brain controls everything within our body. And how this relates today, I'm going to talk about a story of 2 of my athletes. I have 2 athletes that I've been working with for several years now, and they're both doing the Bay Area 100-mile race. And they both have very specific goals time-wise, and we've really honed this. And during the specific phase of their training, which is typically the last 2 months of their training plan, got to get situated here. We go into the specific aspects they need to train for the race itself, but then within that, it's training the brain to be prepared for those specific things that we need to do to achieve our goal. And I'm going to use this as an example. We're going to talk about uphill and downhill running. Is that in that specific phase, we really dialed into, based on the distance of the race, the cumulative gain and loss of the vertical course profile, their effort, and just as importantly, their pace, their average pace for their goal. So based on their vertical gain, all the profile issues of the race, their average pace needs to be roughly around 16.5 minutes per mile. And so where this became important to train the brain in their training is that we were meticulous in every long run they did to have them understand what their uphill pace needed to be relative to their goal time of that 16.5-minute pace and their downhill speed. So now they can have some awareness of what's going on. And what that means is, hey, they have a long climb that they're climbing up. And let's say they're trying to run it, okay? And they look down at their pace and they're running at a 17, 18 minute per mile pace on this climb. And then, so what they can do? They immediately go to, okay, that's closer to my average pace for the whole race. That's probably too fast. I need to be more in the 20 to 25 minute per mile pace on a climb. So now they can downshift, they can go into a hike and have some awareness of what their hiking speed is relative to their goal uphill pace. And that eases their mind. But more importantly, it gives them that feedback, that instant awareness to the brain of like, okay, hey, I'm at 22-minute hiking pace. It feels comfortable. This is what race pace should feel like. And so we're training the brain to understand what things feel like. Way back when I first started coaching, I was part of a handful of coaches that really pioneered online coaching. And as I developed my first website for online coaching, everybody told me how crazy I was. No one's gonna wanna replace in-person coaching with online or virtual coaching. I know that sounds crazy today, but that's what it was like back then. It was scary. Didn't know how it was gonna work out, or I didn't know all the steps involved, but I knew how it felt. I knew what that path felt like. And that's all I needed to have everything fall in place. That doesn't mean it wasn't scary at times, but having the feeling of knowing exactly what it felt like to be the coach I wanted to be and to have the business I wanted to have is all I needed. Everything fell into place. And that's the key. Now it becomes relative. They can say, oh, I can do this. It's specific relativity based on their goal. And so now they can downshift, like I said, it eases their mind, and they can really now settle into that pace and have their mind go to, okay, this is where I need to be. And it's training the mind and the brain to understand what proper effort feels like. And the same thing happens with the downhill. Let's say they're running back downhill after that long climb. And let's say, hey, they made that climb too hard, and now they're running downhill at just kind of a lazy, no awareness 14-minute pace. And they look at their watch and say, ooh, this is slower than race pace relative to my goal. I need to pick it up a little bit. So it creates that focus. It creates that being in the moment. It trains the brain to switch on to say, okay, this is what I need to do. Again, creating that feeling of, okay, if I'm around 10, 12-minute mile pace downhill, that's comfortable, but that's also appropriate race pace. That's training the brain to understand what appropriate levels of effort are relative to what it truly means from a race standpoint. And they're going to apply that to their race strategy. So it's key that now they have that race strategy and they see where their paces need to be on uphill and downhill and on flats. And it's no surprise. They know what that feels like. Too many people focus on how to do it, but creating that feeling of what it's like to have it already in place is the key. And then everything falls into place. And that's the key. Then they just have to kind of visualize and go over the race strategy, knowing what it feels like from training. And that's training the brain. That's training the other muscle that's way, way more important. Okay? So start having the awareness while you're out there on trails and what your pace is and what does that mean to your goals. And start creating that feeling of, okay, hey, I know what 30-minute hiking pace is. I need to be at 25. What does that feel like? Hey, I know downhill, I need to be at 12-minute pace. What does that feel like? And you start to get that correlation. You start training the brain, okay? Everything starts here, all right? Okay, that's all I got for you. Excited. Hopefully I can get more updates. Got some travel coming, but going to be hammering out this app, and I'll try to get back to you when I can. Lay down your questions on training the brain. What's going through your head? What's peak performance mean to you? Let's discuss that. So, all right, over and out from my backyard, Jackson Hole, Born to Run World. See you guys.